being recorded. Go.
Very good. Roll call. How do we want to do this? It's always the challenge.
Commissioner Kroon,
Present.
Commissioner Pulowski,
Present.
Commissioner Wyszynski,
Present.
Commissioner Mackey,
No.
Baylor,
Present.
Commissioner Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Wall.
Not here. Okay.
We lose Ron.
Oh, Ron's here. She said Wong.
Oh, I thought she said Ward. Okay.
So if my count is correct, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commissioners currently present.
Okay.
That checks with my count.
And what do we have for self-introductions? Let's start with the port staff.
Okay, I'll go first. Steve Rebuffo, Port Director.
Sharon, you are muted.
Most people prefer it when I'm muted. So Sharon Walsh, Modernization Program Director, and also the Acting Engineering Manager until further notice. And we'll explain that later in the program.
In Martindale, Operations and Maintenance Superintendent.
Jim Jager, Port Resiliency and Security.
Cheryl Beckham.
Mattingly, Menzies Aviation.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Cheryl Beckham, Port Finance.
I think that's it for the port. If we want to go out to general members.
Dylan Faber with Matson.
Anyone else with Matson?
That's all I see right now.
Anyone with Tote?
Jeff Boole with Jacobs Engineering.
Any petroleum representatives?
Yeah, Bert Mattingly, Menzies Aviation.
Lev Yampolsky, Petrostar.
Okay.
Eugene Haberman, Carl Haberman. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Eugene. Anyone else, general public or any other representatives of industry?
Brittany Kennington with Alaska Maritime Agencies.
Thank you, Brittany.
Tom Reuter, Alaska Maritime.
Hi, Tom. Anyone else?
This is Tu Yang with Delta Western.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I can introduce myself. This is Hadley Owen with NOAA's Office of Coast Survey.
Very good. Is that it? Okay, let's move on to port safety. It doesn't sound like Paul's here, so.
No, so that's going to fall to me today, and I'll explain the why behind that as well when we get to my comments. So I will do the safety minute, which is actually a safety thought for the day for everybody. So here it is. So you don't need to know the whole alphabet of safety. You just the ABC of it, which is always be careful. Carefulness costs you nothing. Carelessness may cost you everything. So that is our safety thought for today.
Very good. All right. Keep that in mind, everybody. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
This is Abe, so moved.
Seconded?
Second it.
Seconded by Paul Mailer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you might, or maybe I'll do it, just remind everybody to identify themselves for the recording when you're talking. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Hearing no opposition, we'll move forward. The approval of the agenda is approved, and moving on to the approval of the March 24, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is that Ron? Sounds like Ron. We have a second?
Second, Simon Lashetsky.
Okay, the only changes I see was in items, number 6, item C. Second line there, it says the she provided an update for Sharon's comments.
I believe that, yeah, we can drop the article and make she a capital letter, and that should make that a grammatically complete sentence. How's that?
That sounds good. Any opposed to the approval of the March 24, 2021 meeting minutes with the minor grammatical changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Approval of March 24, 2021 minutes. Moving on, Steve's got a short time frame here with us, so we'll let him get into his the board director's comments.
Garrett
Thank
Wong.
you, Mr. Chair. This is Steve Rebuffo, Port Director. Let me start by saying, give you guys notice that Commissioner Wong just joined the group.
My apologies for being delayed, extended phone call.
Nope. Glad you made it, Garrett. Okay, I've got 3 things I would like to cover today. First is, well, the first 2 are personnel related issues down here at the port. Let's talk about Paul Rothkus first. While riding his bike to work on Tuesday, May the 4th, Paul had a pretty massive heart attack and was taken to Providence Hospital. They kept him there for a day to stabilize him, and then his condition was such that they flew him down to Oregon for to a cardiac care unit down there. In fact, his wife is living nearby. There's sort of a home for relatives of patients at this hospital that Diana has been at for the better part of the last 2.5 weeks. The port staff's been keeping in touch with the family. Diana's got she's got a little website thing she's set up through this app called Caring Bridge. And I don't know, Jim, do you want to put that for the commissioners in the chat in case anybody wants to sign on and send their regards? But Paul has been on the mend. He's getting much better. They moved him out of the ICU on Monday, so he's up on the cardiac care unit, which is a step better, and getting the physical therapy and the likes. So he's lost a little bit of use on his left side. But his wife says little by little, that's it's coming back. But Paul went through a tough time. He's got a tough time ahead of him. He's on Family Medical Leave Act leave currently. So we're holding the slot open in hopes that the doctors will clear him to come back to work. So that's the update on Paul. We, I think he'd love to hear from as many people as you can. His wife gave him his phone on Sunday. He's not texting very well yet, but he can certainly receive texts and read them for anybody who might be interested in reaching out to him that way as well. Or you can put little comments, kind of like this Caring Bridge is kind of like a Facebook. So you can put little comments in there too if you care to. We wish the Rothkus family the best. I think when they flew him down to Portland, they didn't give him the odds that he's managed to beat. So we're happy to hear that he's on the mend and hope to get him back soon. Sharon mentioned that she's going to sit in and do the report for the engineering services manager because Mr. Roy Blaine has left us. It was a short notice move from Alaska to Florida for family reasons. We were awful sad to see him go as well. For those of you that are users that have been working with Roy, know what a class act he was. And he had a lot more in him. And while we have to respect the fact that your family comes first and you've got to support those kinds of things, we're gonna feel the loss. Besides Sharon, getting back into keeping an eye on not only the modernization program, but the regular port kind of issues, we've asked for our friends at PTS and Michael Baker, who are our engineering services contractor. And PTS does some engineering related administrative support for us to step up their game a little bit. And they've both been very capable and happy to do that. So we've advertised for the position. We had 2 candidates. Sharon and I did the interviews. We didn't like one. We really liked the other. Made the offer and they declined. So we're back to advertising it again, but we're waiting to see how things fall out with the new mayor transition team and if any current municipality employed engineers might be interested in coming down here to the port as opposed to staying where they are, based on what happened. So more to come on that. But in the meantime, we miss Roy, and we're certainly sorry to see him go. And item last for me, Mr. Chair, that I wanted to just get in front of in case I wasn't here was the old business there, the tariff surcharge for the cargo dock design that we requested the commission to hold off on, addressing for one more meeting. Reason being is we are in the process now of waiting to give the notice to proceed to a contractor that we hired through the RFP process to step in and help us do a couple of things PAMP related. The first was to take a look at what the plan of finance has put in place for charges for the cargo docks in general, but in the in the shorter run for the design portion of the cargo docks. Once we give them notice to proceed, they'll have 60 days to do their work. So by the time you guys all meet again, we ought to have something that we can put in front of you to consider that addresses the issue that we would have otherwise just gone out and done. It was a chance to get another set of eyes on this to help us make sure we get it right. These are never easy pills to swallow. So if we do the best financial analysis that we can, then I think we'll have a solid case for the way ahead here that doesn't, inadvertently put us at odds with what we've laid out in the larger plan of finance. So it's a good contractor. I can't give you the name right now because we've given the purchasing office our recommendation for award. What they do next is they have to reach out to all the other contractors who submitted proposals, and there were 5 others, to let them know they were not selected. You got to let time pass to see if there was a protest, and all that adds up to 5 days. We're about day 3 into 5 days. So I hope by Friday we can give notice to proceed to the successful contractor, and I can notify all of you what's happening, because some of you that are port users that are listening in right here are going to get contacted to chat with them as part of what we've asked them to do. So that's where we stand on that. I think it'll be it'll be an item that we will be absolutely ready to discuss with you at the next Port Commission meeting. And that concludes what I have. I don't want to steal any thunder from the rest of the staff. They've got quite a bit to tell you about. But I'll take questions if you have any.
Very good. Any questions from the Port Commission for Steve?
Sharon, you're muted.
Before you get into that, could we remind everyone, if you're not speaking, to please mute your microphone? We are getting a little bit of feedback on this end. If you're not speaking, please mute.
Okay. Do we have any others that have joined us that have not given their names?
We do not. Everybody has been in so far.
Okay. Very good. Well, hearing questions for Steve, we'll move on to item 6, informational items, and that puts Shannon Martindale. Shannon?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. So port maintenance has been working away with painting in the various places around the port. We're going to also focus on the dock painting for the bull rail and the bollards as well. The summer housekeeping, inspections, and current ongoing maintenance that they've been staying on top of. Operationally, we've been doing our weekly meetings between the users and the construction team, and I appreciate everyone's participation in that to keep an open lines of communication. We do have 2 SDDC deployments in June. The weekends will be back to back, June 16th through the 19th, and then again the 23rd through the 26th. And I believe everyone's aware, no cruise ship changes at this time still for the Port of Alaska. And that's all I have. Thank you.
What was the 16th, the 19th, 23rd, 26th? I'm sorry.
16th to the 19th and 23 to 26.
So what was the activity though?
Military deployments.
Ah, I got you.
How many pieces are they moving?
I don't know a piece count total. The first move does have 11 helicopters, and the second one has 4, tentatively.
Okay. Any questions for Shannon from the Port Commission? Well, Shannon, you're getting off easy.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt for just a second? This is Steve Rebuffo.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Yep, I just received an email from Kevin Mackey that he will be unable to make it.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Engineering items. Sharon.
Hey, everybody. I think you can see me now. I've got 2 screens going here. Just the highlights, and I'm still waiting for that second paycheck, and it hasn't started rolling in yet, but you know, that's always a good part about taking on a second job, so we'll see. I'm not holding my breath though. General stuff that's going on, it's the port, we will be finishing jacketing that was begun last year. We have some additional FEMA piles to jacket this year. We're not doing a new wholesale jacketing program at this point. We're waiting for the Michael Baker analysis, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but also, you know, the time is coming that there's not a lot more we can fix. We just have to get a new dock built. So we will be doing some more jacketing. We also, our fender repair project is, with the big news is we did receive a permit to do that work over a 5-year period. And that work will begin next year because of, it takes that long to get the fenders. We can't physically get it done and also get the paperwork for the grant. The grant is now progressing. 2 grants from FEMA are progressing to help pay for that, but we know better, and we know we won't be able to physically do that work till next year. So that'll begin, which will be a good thing actually, because that's pile driving, and it's good for the belugas to not put that on top of what we're doing this year on PAMP. So it'll help the coordination. And then the other highlight item right now is the Ship Creek Boat Launch ramp repair. They're doing the dredging right now. And then in about 6 weeks, when we have the precast planks done, we'll be replacing some of those precast planks on the small boat launch. So if any users of the boat launch are listening, please be gentle with that thing till we get the planks repaired. And then we also have another FEMA project, storm drain repairs, which is at 95% designed, but again, that won't be happening till next year because we kind of have to, we have so much going on down here. It's best if we wait to get some of the other construction out of the way. So that's what's going on with that. On the Michael, those are the cleanup projects from R&M Consultants. On the Michael Baker side of it, they're helping us out with lots of things and couldn't happen at a better time. The week after Roy left, we got notice from the Department of Environmental Conservation that they want to do a 5-year inspection or of our compliance inspection of our stormwater management program. So they'll be here tomorrow. They've got 6 hours set aside. About a couple hours of that will be in the conference room going over our records, and then we'll be out on site looking at all our stormwater management practices. So again, any users, I mentioned this earlier this morning in a different meeting, but any port users that are listening, please be sure your housekeeping is in order, which I know it always is, but let's do double checks tomorrow because you will have Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation inspectors on site, and these are the guys that issue fines. So let's all have our best feet forward tomorrow. So that was a lovely thing to have dropped on us at the middle of beginning of construction season and with Roy not here. However, kudos to Michael Baker. Their environmental folks have really jumped through hoops to help us get ready. And I'm actually feeling pretty confident we're going to make a pretty good showing tomorrow and all the record keeping and everything else. So that's great. Other things that Michael Baker's working on for us, highlights is we're working together on getting a general permit renewal for the Corps of Engineers, and are also helping us with figuring the priority projects that we're going to do through the 214 agreement with the Corps of Engineers, and I'll explain that when we get to PAMP. And another really important thing, I know Shannon's happy about this, and I am too, proactively working on developing some operations and maintenance manuals for our valve yard and some of our other facilities. So we will have, you know, no matter if our maintenance guys are turning over, we don't have to rely so much on what's in somebody's head as what the manual tells us to do. So that's a good thing. Have I missed anything, Shannon, on that group? That's the highlights.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on regular port engineering operations? Nope. Anybody know any young engineers that want, I shouldn't say young, any engineers who are interested in their position? Tell them to watch for the advertisement to come.
So
okay.
Sharon, Brad here, are there, I know you had to move some lines over to POL 1 while POL 2 was in transition there. Is that completed?
Correct. That is completed and operational, and that we might call it the Roy Blaine line because it was a brilliant idea that he came up with, and it's really making things better for coordinating. So yeah, that is done and operational. So we're happy about that.
And then what is the status of POL 2?
POL 2, a nice segue into the PAMP, is currently closed for business because it's closed for construction because of the work we're doing on building the modernization program.
And what's the anticipated duration?
Right now, it's scheduled to be done or to be reopened at the end of June, early July. We did have a bit of setback in the PAMP, which I'll describe in a minute, that put the schedule back a bit, but the contractors really seems to be beating their previous production numbers. So we're hopeful we'll get caught back up and we'll still have that POL 2 back open in early July. Okay. Other questions on regular ops? And I'll go into PAMP.
Any questions for Sharon on the regular?
Okay. So what I want to offer, you know, a big event, I want to describe what's going on with the physical construction right now. And then the big event was the roundtable. And I know all the commissioners are curious and have questions about how that went. Do you want me to cover it all now? Or do you want to put some time at the end so we can spend some time in depth on the roundtable discussions? So what's your preference?
Well, I think if you can hit the highlights, we can get into a little more depth down in the port director's comments, and Steve won't be here. And then if we have any questions, we go in there.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen and show you the big news is, of course, that we're underway in construction on the PAMP. So let's talk about the 2021 construction first. And let me know when you're seeing the screen. I'm not seeing it yet. Hold on, let me go back. And again, I want to show. There we go. Second, okay.
You are shared.
The unconfined bubble curtains on the redemption barge, and we brought up several barges, and Jeff can speak to some of this and answer questions too. But the redemption barge, I would call it kind of the all-purpose pile driver and bubble curtain handler, and they that barge is doing lots of stuff, but also driving all the template piles. The template piles are the ones that help position the main permanent piles. Of course, the permanent piles this year are the monopiles, and we're expecting to drill the first, to install the first one this afternoon. So pretty exciting. They're 12-foot diagonal piles, and they're pretty cool. But what you're looking at here is the unconfined bubble curtain, and this year they've made some changes for the way that they are doing the bubble curtain. And they've made kind of a template thing that is actually really increasing their production. So that's pretty cool. And that's what you're looking at here. These rings are where the air comes through to deaden the sound of the pile driving. That's another thing we're doing is, you remember we had a big change order we had to go to the assembly for because we had unexpected sediment deposition, mostly around the last year's work because of the barges, we think, being in the way and the whole time and slowing down the current there. So we have to do that. And they're dredging with this long reach backhoe. They put it on this barge called the Mr. Ha. And then when the Mr. Ha is full, they take it out to the inlet. You can see it out there if you walk on the coastal trail, and they shove the sediment off with this loader. And it's all approved by the Corps of Engineers. So we're not doing anything. Everything we do is out in front of God and everybody with a set of binoculars. So we're, it's a sanctioned activity, if you've been wondering. This is actually some cleanup of last year's work, and it's the bull rail, pouring the bull rail around the loading platform. So those are some of the forms for it, and here's a pour going on there. It says pouring cement, and they should know better. They're pouring concrete, not straight cement. I'll have to dock them 10 points for that. And then over here, this is kind of an interesting situation. This is moving the barge anchors, and they've brought up this apparatus that helps them move them more efficiently. And so that's a change from last year. So many pilots have seen that out there, that's what's going on there. So the questions about the photos? Nope. Okay, I will stop sharing. Let me do that. And meanwhile, so we've been proceeding with construction. Our setback was that as part of a condition of the 2 grants, which I'll talk about in a minute, the Bill grant, the PIDP grant, we could only allowed to do so much work before the grants were approved and before the legally and before the environmental assessment down in Washington, D.C. was completely done and blessed with holy water. And there was about a 2-week period of time that we had to stop PPM from doing any ground disturbing activity, including pile driving or trenching or anything like that, until all the paperwork was signed and sealed back in D.C. The good news is, and Senator Bukowski actually visited us during this time frame, and we were ready to pull that card. She was ready to march over to the Office of Secretary of Transportation and get it squared away, but with the hard work of everybody involved, including our team that we work with at Marriott, we were able to avoid having to make her do that, and we resumed that got lifted May 13th. So we've had a little bit of a schedule setback, but the contractor has been working hard to get back on schedule, and we have been told that acceleration costs, like say extra shifts or something like that, are reimbursable under the grant. So we're recovering pretty well from something unexpected. So that's good. And then again, they're setting up now the big monopile. We're also doing the trenching work in the South Transit Yard that will take all the piping over to the POL, where the water service is getting underway, and that's actually a bigger deal than it sounds like, because it's a fairly long line. And just, I want to give Jeff a minute to talk about the schedule, talk about just in general, just how things are going out there. But we have lots of miscellaneous little changes. That always happens. But right now we're feeling like we have a chance of making it and getting done this year. Jeff, you want to elaborate?
Yeah, just to reinforce what Sharon said. So we got off to a slow start. PPM through the learning curve last year. I think they came in this year with some different setups on their barges and stuff, which has enabled them to double or triple their production rate. They were getting about 1 pile a day on the average last year, and they're hitting 2 to 3 piles a day with these first few piles that they're putting in. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to make up that schedule slippage. And the critical path is really getting all the in-water work done, the dolphins and the dolphin cap set, all the fuel piping and the topside fit out stuff on the platform. It's actually on schedule, but if that runs a little bit long, that's not so much a problem, because we can continue to work on that in November, December. But critical path is the in-water work and the dolphin work, and we're just getting started. But so far, the contractor's been off to a really good start. Over.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff from the commission?
Hey, Brad, this is Paul. I have a question for Sharon, if I could. Sharon, thanks for the update. I am curious on the grant setback. Anytime there's something, just trying to understand as a commissioner, what went wrong, what broke in that process that we lost a couple of weeks on. Obviously, on such a tight schedule, 2 weeks is a big deal. And when, a great team has been working awfully hard to make sure we have very hard dates, and all of a sudden we have a stop work order. I was wondering if you could explain to us what went wrong there. What did we learn, and what's our way forward?
Well, first I want to explain the context of these grants. One of the grading points is that you have to show that you're readiness to do the work, and you have to show that you can, get this job done on schedule. And that's great, and we were able to show you're ready. We had 100% design. The problem is, they don't want you can't be too ready. You can't do too. It took about 14 months to get these grant agreements in place, and I have to say our team, I think was, we were very diligent working with them. One thing we learned on our side, we feel like we had some slowdowns because of Buy American Act information at the time that we did the design. We didn't realize, that was ahead of the grant applications, and we didn't realize how significant that would be. And so the design called for items that are the best item to use, but not domestic. So the lesson learned that we learned there is that for all future work, we need to state in the design, at the very beginning of design, thou shalt, designer, make this Buy American compliant, because that will be sure that we won't have any hiccups along the line when we, if we're able to secure more grant funding. So that's something we learned on our end that we could do that would streamline going forward. On the other side, well, the best thing I can say is that things can move slowly in Washington, D.C. And there was a couple balls dropped on that end, on the environmental side. And again, I remember we talked about this white paper where we explained, why do you need us to do another environmental assessment for you why do you have to do one when we've already got the Corps and the National Marine Fisheries and all these people have already reviewed it, same project, same everything, and they're okay with it. And we went through some of that before, that they should be able to accept another agency's work, but it's up to the individual legal counsel for the individual agency. And there's a lot of fear that if they just too cavalierly accept another agency's approval, that something got missed that affects their agency. So it's could be a lot more collaboration on that end of the line. And that's something we met specifically with Senator Murkowski about. And she very much gets it. And that's something she's looking on, streamlining the way that has to be done so that different agencies will feel more comfortable accepting work that's already been done. So that was the real last slowdown. I think it would have been, so those are the main lessons learned. Jeff, do you have anything else on that?
I would just say that the single biggest factor was this environmental clearance. As Sharon said, we went through and got our permits from NIMS and the Corps and everything. MARAD doesn't accept other agencies' environmental documents, so we basically had to redo everything. And the odd thing is, for example, one of the elements is the State Historic Preservation Office sign off that we're not, the project does not have a negative effect on a historical property, which in our permitting process, it was kind of a no-brainer. Yep, no issues there. But MARAD had to consult with the SHPO officer themselves, and we actually had to schedule the meeting for them. They wouldn't even reach out and schedule the meeting that they had to consult with the SHPO officer. So there was a whole lot of hand-holding with us, with the MARAD environmental folks, to get their environmental documents signed off. So that was quite frustrating, and I know Sharon has elevated that issue to our congressional delegation for future discussion, where federal agencies won't accept each other's environmental reviews. So that was the predominant delay, is figuring out what those guys needed for their internal review and then helping them schedule the meetings with the right people to get their clearances. So, yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah, Sharon, Jeff, that helps. It's a little frustrating to me to watch that timeline, right? So we were really right on top of starting when we got word of a stop work. And it's frustrating to try and, we're trying to help and improve the process, right? So we don't run into these on such tight timelines that we have here in Alaska, and to have that thrown at us, like a couple of days before we're going to start the work. I'm just trying to figure out what could have been done different to prevent, because obviously this isn't the only one that's going to come up. We have to move forward with these permits and these processes, but somewhere along the line, this very last minute orders are completely frustrating from my perspective of, not efficient. So I appreciate the time and explanation, but as watching this transpire, I thought, how can this be so last minute that someone comes up and says, stop?
Well, just to build on that and kind of close the loop, I think the other problem too is that the folks you're working with on the other side of it, the folks in Washington, D.C., don't understand construction season. I don't think they really realize that the timing of a delay like that can make you lose a whole year. They don't get it because it's another couple of weeks and they just keep working after that. They don't have to shut down for winter. I really think that's kind of an underlying thing too, is there's not a good understanding on the federal side of that we only have, 5 to 6 months max to work. And it's like, it's okay. They'll just, extend the time a little bit into the next season has major cost. So I know this particular team got educated to that, but will those same people be here for the next go round? Probably not. So that's something that from the get-go, we really have to emphasize in applications or wherever. So that's the other, I think that's a line that runs through the whole conversation. You've got to understand.
We have to be proactive. Yeah, we just have to be out in front of it and not wait and assume anything. But thank you. Appreciate the briefing.
Okay, so with that, what's going on and the looking forward parts of things is we did have our industry roundtable where we presented. That happened last Thursday, and Commissioner Ward was there. I don't know if he was able to get back on the line or not, but he was there for the entire presentation, and so you got mailer, so that was helpful. I'm going to just, it was a good session. It wasn't like a traditional charrette where everyone says, well, what do we want to build? And let's talk about the different concepts. We've been working that for many years, but specifically dialing in on the cargo docks in close partnership with Tote and Matson for the last year. And so this, and we came to agreement. We vetted the engineering pieces and parts and pros and cons and operational pieces and parts and pros and cons, and came to a configuration, a footprint for the new cargo docks that all of those critical parties agree on. And so with that, this roundtable was to present that footprint, that basic concept, and to the larger group of stakeholders, and to talk about the things that needed to, that need to be more thoroughly dialed in on a preliminary design. But we're all on the same page, linked arms, kumbaya, on what the basic look of this is going to be. So the recommendations, I'll hit those real quick. Came out of it was, one, we should proceed with the modified 140-foot berth line concept, which means that the new terminals will be 140 feet out from where the existing face of the dock is. That should proceed. They're going to also look at different ways, though it'll be a pile supported dock, but we need to proceed with the alternatives of different ways to do that piling, maybe to decrease the permitting time, that kind of thing. Different construction methods, maybe some newer stuff. And Jacobs is looking, internationally at different ways other people are skinning the cats to see if there's something that we can do to make things go faster and better and quieter. Because quieter means less permitting time, and that's the long thing, is the permitting time on these. So we were doing that. Another recommendation, when this is from the private side, is that we develop a communication strategy for communicating what needs to happen to the new administration. And that is going to be very critical, how the new administration approaches the progress on this situation. And that, obviously, the private sector is going to have much more, what's the word? I guess credible. I don't mean to say that we're not credible, but they have a big role to play there because the administration needs to hear from them, not from us, because we work for them. So that was determined that there needs to be a communication strategy, a working group put together to communicate from the private sector to the administration where the project is, and that we're all ready to move forward and whatever it takes to not stop the progress, because Mother Nature keeps corroding our dock, whether we have a new election or not. So that was a recommendation. Also to look at schedule acceleration options, both the different ways of getting the piling into the ground, better ways to get the permitting folks happy. We want to keep a close conversation with all the fuel customers, so that predictions and forecasting, because that will inform some of the decisions made for alternate fuels transfer capabilities. And we need to keep that going. We need to increase the frequency of the inspections of our existing piles. Michael Baker is working on a structural analysis model of all the work we did last year, and the very volume of data that we got last year on the state of our current dock. But we can't just say, okay, we'll check on it again in a couple of years. We need to keep a close eye on that. So we probably will have to do some more underwater diving along the way, so we can keep everyone up to speed on how our current dock is holding up. We need to continue doing tidal current monitoring and data gathering as things change. If the north extension, and we're able to cut that back before we build the cargo docks, we're going to want to retest the currents. We're going to want to really make sure that we're keeping track of all the conditions that affect building an effective, final product. And that ended up with the end of the day when everyone agreed, yes, let's move forward on this modified 140 configuration. Now, an ordinance was passed last year, which was a great idea, is for the design concepts to be taken to the assembly through the mayor's office to say, the design advisory group, this is ordinance 2020-081, if anyone wants to look that up, 2020-081, and that gives the instructions that the port through the mayor and the design advisor creates a design advisory board made up of private industry and port representatives, and that that they take the concepts to the assembly approves it, and then the work proceeds along that approval. And this is to prevent people again and again saying, well, what if? If it's to say the assembly has approved this and that's a direction. So that actually the first piece of that, and I think Steve has to depart, and I think Steve had to depart.
Steve is back.
But we worked with the users group, the design advisory group, did all the paperwork for this recommendation to the assembly, and it will be presented at the June 8th meeting. And with that, presuming the assembly approves, we'll be able to release Jacobs to authorize them to begin preliminary engineering based on the footprint that was approved by the assembly. And Jeff, anything you want to add before we take questions?
No, nothing for me.
Okay, so questions on the roundtable.
Any commissioners have questions for Sharon on the roundtable specifically? And Steve sent those out. I think everybody got a copy of those. Is that correct, the whole commission?
And that was really appreciated to receive them in time to look through what the ordinance said, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if we had enough time to go fully through it. I see Simon, you have your hand up, Simon?
Yeah, I do. It's not so much a question, but I had a discussion with Aves a couple of days ago with regards to this, that, we've reached a critical point here. And Ave, do you want to talk to this, or, what I'm trying to say is I think that this needs a letter of support from from us, and maybe co-signed or in conjunction with the round table, to the commission. I think something like that from us, and also maybe some discussions with the new administration, because I'm a little worried that we might see some big changes, and I'd like to see a continuity and that kind of stuff. Ave, do you want to talk to that a bit, or?
Well, yes, through the chair. Simon and I did talk about that continuity, and I think Sharon mentioned it earlier in her comments that they're preparing a briefing for the new administration to show where the port activity is right now, the decisions that have been made, the work that's gone on with the shareholder groups and the stakeholder groups, and the idea that we just want to be sure that there are no disruptions in the progress that has been made. I'm not sure we want to go much farther than that at this point, but I believe that the commission has worked with the shareholders, the stakeholders, and with the port staff in listening and offering comments and advice and just being part of the discussion. And I, for one, as a port commissioner, am very appreciative of that. But I think at this point, the best strategy would be to let the port staff put together the briefing group and inform the new administration on where we are, what the plans are, and the path forward. So, thank you.
Simon here again, Simon Leszewski. Is there any thought from the rest of the commissioners on a letter of support to the assembly for the June 8th meeting? Brad? Anybody else?
Yeah, I kind of hear two parts here. One to the assembly, and one some way to address the new administration. Is that correct, or do we want? I guess it's.
Yeah, just to say that keep in mind that the new administration takes office July 1. They're doing their, beginning their transition interviews and whatnot. And they're sending groups out to meet with every department. to see where there can be efficiencies or, just to decide if something should be changed. So that's happening. The assembly meeting of June 8th is the current administration. And so you are really talking about two different groups to talk to. But the first things first, if the ordinance is the law of the land, the design advisory group is, required to take this concept forward for approval. And all the whereases in the ordinance, if you read it, do explain that the purpose that it came about in the first place was to get assembly approval of concept so that the assembly didn't have to hear arguments later on about why this concept or that concept was bad. So just keep in mind, you're talking about two groups. Current administration, July 1, new administration after.
Understood. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, Simon. I think, would be, whatever leverage we can offer to keep continuity. And then my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, we have pretty much carte blanche approval of the design where we're at. Is that correct, Sharon? And
it was unanimous. Cat Mailer, you want to speak to that? You were there.
Yeah, Sharon. Brad, we, at the round table, we did go through all the options, and as Sharon said, it was a unanimous vote. There was no dissent that we were going through with this plan, and the users agreed and are fully supportive. So I think it's, moving that to the assembly is pretty strong coming out of the round table with everyone that was there, but certainly no harm. I feel it's, a commissioner's role to have reviewed that, look at it ourselves, and make our own decisions. Do we want to support that? But I can speak from being at the round table that it was fully supported, really with a clear understanding that time is of essence now. We have to be moving with this. And we could always nitpick and make small changes here and there, but ultimately, let's move this forward. And no one dissented on that idea.
And Mr. Chair, I see Bert Mattingly's hand is up. Bert is also a member of the Design Advisory Committee and was at the roundtable. I know you usually like to finish all the commissioner discussion first before opening it up, but we might want to hear what Bert has to say at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I think a letter of support would not hurt. I don't know if we can get it together before the process-wise before the assembly meeting, but I would be for that. Getting in front of the new administration and letting them know we are supportive of the port and continuity and however else we can help them be successful. So,
hey, Brad.
Bert, do you want to comment? Oh,
Brad,
sorry.
This is Ron.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
I would like to jump in here and suggest that perhaps before we move any further on that, it might be desirable to go into executive session, because this is something that the commission needs to discuss internally. We don't need to discuss it in front of the port personnel or the public, and so that's my motion.
Okay.
I see. Do you want to have an executive session at the end and go through the other items so that other folks on the call can continue for the other items and then have executive session at the end of this meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, sure. Leshetsky here.
With that, let's hear from Bert here real quick, and we get some more information from that perspective, unless other commissioners have comments. I think on this part we were just talking about, and I don't know, maybe that's what you're speaking to, but this is just a letter of support from the Port Commission and the presentation to the Assembly, not anything in relation to the new administration.
Right. Thank you, Brad. So I just wanted to go on record that the current plan is for the fueling capability to be offloaded on the tote terminal. And if they go down that path, it'll be 11 years before that's available. And the current plan apparently is to patch POL2 for 11 years, and I just want to go on record to state that I'm opposed to that course of action. I would prefer to see it go on Matson's terminal and us get it in use as soon as possible. That's all.
Okay. Well, that sounds like more into the weeds discussion. I think from the commission perspective, it's kind of approval of a design in the, as a whole, and as a general design. I think there's going to be lots of, I would think over time, but specific major facility is what we're talking about here. Because what are we at, 30%? If that on the design.
Yeah, Jeff, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the design is about 10 or 15%, so it's very not very mature at this point. It's just the general location and the general shape of the structure is all that we've done so far.
Yeah, and I think that's all we would be supporting the approval of. I think a lot of the other, whether you have one at the pipeline to the Matson one when it's completed, I think that's probably relatively. But anyway,
yeah.
Well, thanks, Bert, for your comments on that. Anyone else?
Yeah, Brad, this is Bob Pulaski. I think at this point in time, a simple letter supporting the effort of the design team and the stewardship of the project by the port administration would suffice. I don't think we need to get much more into that. It's been a long time going down the road, a very zigzag road, to come finally to a solid direction following a successful construction of the PCT. And I think we need both those points in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I would agree.
And Mr. Chair, one last point. This is Bob Pulaski. I'm willing to draft it.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Brad, this is Aves. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
ahead,
this is Aves. Just to put a fine point on what I was talking about, I am supportive of a letter, talking about the continuity and the importance of getting this done as quickly as we can. We've talked about this for many, many, many years, and the time has come that for business reasons as well as for the condition of the dock, we need to move as quickly as we can. And I think we can we can demonstrate in our letter that there's been support of the basic design concept by both the stakeholders and the port staff, and that we're supportive of those efforts to move forward.
Are you still there, Ron?
Yes, and I agree completely with what Aves has just said, and I did attend the roundtable, and time was one of the major components and major focuses of the user groups and moving forward with this design, which, as Jeff said, is still in its infancy. I see some issues for pilots and users, but I have no problem supporting and agreeing to a letter that supports the way forward. Over.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Yeah, I think that's what we're getting at initially. Well, if you want to work on drafting something that you can get out, I think that would be wonderful. Any other comments on this topic with Sharon? I don't see any. Sharon, do you have any other comments before we move on to finance?
No, I don't think so. We appreciate everyone's attention. If you have additional questions, of course, you can always get a hold of us, and we'll be doing what we do until told otherwise.
Okay. With that, hold on. I see somebody's got a hand up here. Eugene, you had a comment?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. think Eugene cut out.
Go ahead, Eugene.
Hold a sec. Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Okay, is it okay? You asked for comment. Can the public respond to what you're talking about just right now, or what? Because I know in your normal open meetings before COVID, you would allow for people that were attending to address issues that you were addressing. So can I make a brief comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Eugene.
Okay. You made reference to the executive session, and then you also at the same time you discussed raising an issue of the letter. And number one is I can't see how you can go into any executive session unless it was a significant financial matter, for example, or litigation and things like that. And the issues that you're addressing don't reflect that. So an executive session would be inappropriate to do now or later. And you need to maintain an open public meeting for your discussion. And then reference to the letter, that the public needs to have an opportunity to make the statement of whatever letter is drafted up before you make an approval of that letter, even if it means a later meeting, a special meeting on that given letter. And that's all I have to say on that. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. I think we are at a point where we are just looking at the letter, but we can discuss that as we get further along. Whether we need an executive meeting, I don't think. Thank you, Eugene. I see no others. Let's move on to Cheryl for our financing.
Hi, everyone. I hope you've all had a chance to review the financial report that was sent out with your packets. I am in the process of sharing my screen so we can take a quick look. And I know time is important to be mindful of. So I'll be succinct and informative. I hope that you all had a chance to look at our revenues. They are very much on track, and we're very happy with the performance so far through the year, which is 4 months. So we're hopeful that, things will stay on track and, we'll meet the revenue amounts that we've put into our budget. So they're all fairly well up to date. You'll notice here in the cash and construction investment pool, we don't have anything recorded. There's a separate system at Public Finance, and they do all the calculations, and they're recorded on not quite a monthly basis, as you see. So they're trying to catch up. Central Finance and the whole municipality they're going through the financial audit for 2020. So as things get closed, we have 16 periods that we are able to work in. So once those 16 periods for 2020 are closed, we should see our investment progress for 2021. And the amount of the budget comes from the Public Finance Group on what they think we'll be able to achieve in returns for 2021. So everything else in the revenue is pretty straightforward. And if anyone has any questions on that, we can chat about that now before we move on to the expenses. Okay, with no questions on the revenue, we have our personnel services. This represents payroll that's charged through the 15th of April due to the timing of how payroll posts. So you'll see we lag a little bit for our target budget of 33%. Non-labor, it tends to be all of the other operating expenses. And this is typical of this time of year. We don't see all of the budget being used and consumed until pretty much the end of the summer, when we have a lot of the work completed that we've outlined in our budget for this year. Legal services, we all know what those are. We're continuing to progress. I particularly don't have an update on the litigation, and I'm not sure if Sharon, if you know, or Steve, I think is probably the best one to provide any kind of, and maybe Jim. I'm not sure. I don't have any details on where we're at with that. I just know what we've paid. So, with that being said, we have our MISA and dividend payments that are coming up in July. You'll see those posted when the reports for July get transmitted to you. One of the things that you'll see in June is what we talked about last month is the first debt service payment for our long-term revenue bonds that we issued last year. So the debt service for those bonds is going to be approximately $2.3 million. So you'll get to see they're made in lump sum payments, one in June and one in November. So those will post during that time frame. The IGCs are just general government charges, and again, they're lagging due to the creation or the compilation of the 2020 budget year. So with that being said, that's pretty much our slice of the world where we're at and what we are looking for. I think overall it looks pretty great, and we're pretty well on track. Nothing too concerning from my part. And I can take any questions on the expenses if anyone has any.
Any questions for Cheryl on the expenses? And then we'll have Jim or Sharon make comment if there is any on the litigation.
So while everyone's considering their questions, I'll just bring up our last little piece of information here, which is our tonnage so far through April 30th. I did not include the month-to-month tonnage, but I have it on my screen, and I will just give you guys a quick look at it. I know it's a lot of accounting pages, but here's where we are for April this year. You'll see that that'll tie to you the number on your financial report, 1.4 million tons, and here's where we were April last year, 1.2 million tons. So just some information to share with you. You know, it's an uptick for us this year. So we're very happy about that. And I think all things considered, we expect to continue for the rest of the year.
What are you seeing the bulk of it? Is it petroleum?
Yes. You know, vans, flats, and containers, Brad, that's up a little bit, right? You can see, I'm not sure, is that too tiny?
That's a little small on my screen, but.
Let me do this. Yeah. Oh, I gotta unfreeze my windows. Hold on. Let me get there. Okay. So this is my worksheet. I typically don't like to share all my, nerdy worksheets, but here we go. How's that?
Good.
Okay. So you'll see we're up slightly in vans, flats, and containers, which is great news. Everything else you'll see is petroleum related. So, great to see all the growth and the business that the port's able to, make happen.
How many petroleum, or not petroleum, but cement ships do we have this year?
There's 4 on the schedule.
And we've had 1 so far?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that was in May. So that's why you don't see it on here yet. So you'll see it next with the next reports.
Okay, any questions for Cheryl on the volumes?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Bob.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Cheryl, does the petroleum reflect the increased cargo activity at the airport, or is there some other reason for it?
So we had, I believe that, there was some, what we've seen is just an increase you'll see through the shore side. So you see shore side and dock side. So that's all of the customers, they're increasing their volumes over the dock and through the pipeline. So, we keep track of the volume itself, Bob, but, as far as like why those things are happening, a lot of that's information that's business related. So if the users share that, that's great. But, we know that, those are our statistics that we're providing. So given that, we can see and think and recognize that there's an increase, but as just to why that relates to each business, we don't have specific details that we document on that. Other
Thank
than
you.
the ones what we know, yeah.
Any other questions for Cheryl? Seeing none, is there, oh, Lev, you have a question or comment? Are you there, Lev?
Sorry, I was double muted apparently. I apologize. I just want to confirm that the numbers that we are seeing in terms of the petroleum, that growth is above what was modeled in the presentations that we saw from Parish Blessing to service the debt for the PCT.
Can you speak to that, Cheryl? Or
That's correct. That's
it's
correct.
above
So the
what
increased
we
volumes. Yeah. So and it's great to address that because it is it's something that we that I and Parish Blessing keep in mind every year. So in September, we have the task order set up for Parish Blessing to provide you all with their recommendations on, volumes versus tariff rates. So we'll be doing that exercise. Our work starts in after the first 6 months. So we'll begin to compile the information in July and August. And then, for your September meeting, we'll have the recommendation on the tariff rates for 2021. And Lev is absolutely correct that the original volumes that were used for the tariff rates did not include this uptick in petroleum.
No, thanks, Cheryl, because it's not just an uptick this year, it's also a higher volume for 2020. And I guess when you guys present it to the Port Commission, you'll explain what's happening with that surplus when there's discussion of additional tariff charges or surcharges for design. So appreciate that.
Yep, that's the plan.
Okay. Ron.
Yes, in regards to what Lev brought up, I've asked Steve at the round table, but he didn't have a concrete answer. He said ABI was being kind of quiet about it. But my question involves cement. I mean, you got 4 cement ships coming to POL 1 until the PCT is done. But my thought is that once the PCT is finished, that the offloading of cement ships will be far more efficient than it is at POL 1. And that we'll be able to actually handle more than 4 cement ships. And there might be increased volume with cement as well in the future.
Well, that'd be good.
Yep. And it's one of the great things I think about the way we have it structured is that every year for this 10-year tariff, we'll look at the tariff rates. I mean, it gives us the ability it gives you all the ability to look at the tariff rates, compare it to actuals, see what's being charged, and just, be sure that the rates are set at where they should be for the users.
So from the modeling perspective, that we do at the end of the year have increased volumes through 2021, as we're seeing indication of. Is the modeling tariff such that we would reduce the petroleum tariff, or would we include that monies towards some of the design of the new facility? How would that be?
So I think that's a discussion that would happen at that time, once you're presented with the numbers and everyone can, provide their input to say, all right, yes, this is where we were at. We set the rates based on this. And we'll have debt service under our belt. We'll have, some of the more consistent pieces of putting this puzzle all together are just coming together, will be together, and solidified. So you'll know going forward that, what the volume is looking like for the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. And then we can just, it'll be presented and the conversations can happen at that time. So I think we're open to make it, be as transparent for everyone as possible.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Cheryl. Bert, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to address the cause of the increase in demand. Everyone knows it's COVID related, but specifically it's the decline of international passenger flights, and the cargo is being basically diverted to cargo, 100% cargo flights. So once we see an increase in international passenger flights, we will see a decline in international cargo flights through Anchorage. So this is basically related to COVID in Asia. And just for your own information, this May is going to be the highest May in the history of the airport for jet fuel.
I wonder how much of that will stick because of cost savings on the routes they hadn't looked closely. Interesting. Thank you, Bert.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm sure Bert is completely plugged in and that his statements are true, but they're also expanding FedEx and UPS. I mean, I think we're going to see upticks in cargo either way. I think some of it is here to stay over.
Yeah, I would agree. I think sometimes when they have these anomalies and they start looking at the numbers, it starts making sense. Thank you, Ron and Bert and Cheryl. Cheryl.
Yep.
Okay. Anything from Jim or Sharon?
I can give you a report if you're ready.
Yeah. We'll that's a good segue into business development and start with the litigation, if you don't mind.
Sure. Basically, what's going on with the litigation right now is we are sometime in late July. I don't remember the exact date. Both sides owe the judge briefs in lieu of closing arguments. I believe the judge will have one round of questions for them, and then we're expecting a final decision sometime this fall.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for that, Jim.
So one other note I'll add just from earlier, just because we've been getting lots of phone calls about it. As was already said, the small boat launch is being dredged this week. They're planning to put the floats together over the weekend or early next week, and it should be fully operational by the first weekend in June. Now moving on, I know we're getting short on time, so I'll move on to my piece. We just completed 2 weeks ago, completed and submitted a port security grant application for 4 security projects. One will be replacing our aging access control system. The system is basically no longer going to be supported by the manufacturer, so we want to replace it with an up-to-date compliant cyber secure system. And that was one of 4 items. Second one, our microwave radio communication system that gets all of our access control and closed circuit television, security television information to the control center is also getting very long in the tooth. So we are looking at replacing that system with a modern system that is faster, has more capability, is cyber secure. It will be a self-healing microwave mesh, and it should also work with some incoming technologies so that, for instance, if people want to use access control cards to enable the operation of moving equipment like snowplows, it will deal with equipment that's moving as opposed to things that are in a fixed location. The third item on our list is we want to buy some gates and lighting for the new snow dump up on J Bear so that we can secure that facility. And finally, we're looking for some updates to improve our CCTV control system. So that application got submitted 2 weeks ago, and we expect to hear about it probably in September. We are in the process of working on the Port Infrastructure Development Program grant. We're putting together a grant application that is looking for money to do the North Extension stabilization work, and we are hoping to start that work next summer. We're also preparing preparing materials for a number of other grants that are coming down the pike. We've got infrastructure grants. There will be a Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant coming down later this summer. There will be a RAISE grant. RAISE is Rebuilding America Infrastructure, Sustainability and Equity. it's basically the new build or Tiger grant. So we are getting materials ready for those grant applications. Two of the plans that we're looking for, or two of the projects that we're looking for grant money for, will be the trailer on flat car loading facility and the port power plan that I'll talk to you about in just a couple of minutes. We spent quite a bit of time in this last month briefing the legislature and members of the legislature in support of state funding for the port modernization program. Specifically, we've been asking the state for money to help with next summer's North Extension stabilization work. We also were supporting or giving information to support a legislative resolution that would ask the federal government to provide PAMP funding. We had to do a bunch of PCT construction updates earlier this month and in April to get the community ready. If you go to the port website, you can go to the live web camera and watch those big piles that Sharon was talking about being driven. We are continuing our program with the governor's office. When COVID started and they started their COVID dashboard as they were looking at the state response to COVID, they asked us to start preparing a weekly memo for them talking about Port of Alaska operations and capacity. And I guess somebody in Juneau decided they liked that document, so we're still moving that every week. And then we're moving the port power plan forward, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute. And that's really all I have to report right now.
Yeah.
I'm muted. Any questions? I see Garrett.
Yeah, John, in your presentations to the feds and the state, was there any different reaction this time around versus previous presentations asking for money?
Not particularly. I mean, in general, everybody from the legislature, the Washington delegation, DOD folks, everybody understands the importance of the port, how it plays into our public needs. And I don't think anybody argues that. The real question is, where is the money going to come from? You know, the generals, for instance, don't have a checkbook to write a check to support part of the port modernization program. They know that the port is critical to their defense strategies, but they don't have a specific check. I will note that the port was not among the earmark items that were listed when, you know, legislators, or rather representatives around the country were asked to list the primary infrastructure programs that they wanted support for. The port did not make that list.
That's an oops. Thank you.
Our legislative folks are on our side though, and have maybe made comment to the DOD.
I believe they are working on our side and are working the background. We just didn't get on the earmark list, if you.
Yeah.
Ron, you have a question?
Yeah, Jim, you forwarded some comments that were made by the new administration, incoming mayor's office about the fort. Have you got any more information about that? Has anybody, I know Steve said he was going down to City Hall. Has anybody had discussions with the new administration yet? Over.
What I forwarded is just the newspaper story and the public documents that the incoming administration has published. So I don't have any other insights. The assembly last night accepted the election results, so I would anticipate we will start hearing more in the next day or two. I really don't know anything right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to follow that the joint resolution for having the Department of Defense support the port was just simply held in rules in the House.
I'm sorry, you broke up and I missed the last little part of that.
Yeah, the joint resolution in the House supporting DOD investigative report simply died in, or is held in rules.
That's correct. It did not move out of the House. The House passed it, and then it died.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Sharon.
before we leave item 6, the informational items, I did have something that just came in I'd like to share. Is that all right?
That'd be great.
Okay. I mentioned that they were, we were wanting to place the first monopile today. This picture is like just a few minutes old. And what I want you to notice is that, come on now. There we go. That is a 12-foot diameter piling. And if you're trying to get a sense of scale, look at the people. That's how big those piling are. About 200 feet long and 12 foot in diameter. So that's a thing of beauty. This is the template piles. This is holding it in place. And as soon as we're done, I'm going to go up on the roof and see what I can see and hope that I don't see any of this and mostly see just this, because that means the pile driving is going well. So this is the first big effort here. So again, look at the size of those people compared to those piling.
Awesome.
Crazy.
What's the scantling? What's the thickness, Sharon?
Well, it actually varies, and Jeff can speak to this. I think he's still with us. It's actually thicker at the top than the bottom of the piling because of the because it has to do with the structural analysis and flexibility and things like that. Jeff, do you have anything there on that?
Yeah, they're about 1 5/8 inch wall thickness
At the top.
on the average. I think it goes from 1.5 inches to up to 1 3/4, so call it 1 5/8 inches.
So pretty big. And for the record, Mr. Rebuffo has returned from City Hall, so he joined us. He was at the going away party for Ralph Dwyer.
Sharon, this is Ron again. Could I ask a question? I should have asked when you were giving your report, but in the discussions about POL2 at the roundtable and the fact that the impressed current system was not working for years, has that been repaired? I know you're doing repairs on piles and trying to keep it going, but has the impressed current system been repaired so that we can keep POL2 in operation as long as possible? Over.
So thank you for that question. We actually, Michael Baker, starting a weekly update with them, and we talked about that this morning, and they're doing an overall analysis to see on the weaker part and parcel with the main dock structural analysis to identify the weaker spots so that we can take a look at what we can do. What can we do to, preserve as much as we can from here forward? So that's part of that analysis.
Oh, good, thank you. And I guess we'll get a copy of that report.
Yeah, but it's not going to be next week, and that's going to take a couple of months. But yes, we'll keep you posted because I know it's critical to everyone.
Great, thanks.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Or Sharon, sorry. Let's see. Moving on from informational items to old business. I see none. I don't think we have any old business. From there we have new business, which would be, I guess, two things. One would be the letter of support we previously discussed, and how we can move that forward per Eugene's comments. Jim, is there a way we can get Bob to write that letter and put it out, post it, and have I don't know if we need a quick meeting or what we would need to do to submit it before what was the deadline? June 8th?
Sorry,
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chair, this is Steve Rebuffo. if you guys are sending a letter to the assembly in support, you are not held to the same timeline we are to put documents into the assembly's hands for an upcoming assembly meeting. You can submit that anytime you want, knowing though that this is probably going to go for public hearing and a vote on June the 22nd. So you certainly want it to be to the assembly before June the 22nd.
Okay, I just want to make sure, you weren't here, but Eugene commented that we can't, publicly put anything out to the assembly without, or public meeting wise, without putting it out to the public first. So trying to figure out how we can get a letter written and follow processes and get it moving forward. Whether that's writing it, posting it, and then just having a quick call in, yay, nay to move it forward, or what we need to do to make that those requirements.
This is Jim. You can schedule a special meeting via Teams and do it online pretty easily.
Okay.
What was that date?
Sorry, who is that?
This is Aves. What was that date?
You want to have it submitted before the 22nd of June. That's the assembly will act.
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I thought Jim mentioned a date.
Yeah, June 22nd. June 8th was the assembly meeting, but I think
Where it will be introduced.
it'll be
for public
introduced
hearing.
and then
This
voted on the
This is
22nd.
Ron. This is Ron. Are we required to have public comment on something that's more or less an internal? I mean, don't we work for the assembly and the muni? I mean, I understand Eugene's comments, but I don't think it's germane to what we're discussing here in this particular case, since it's more or less an internal memo from the commission to the muni in support. Over.
Mr. Chair, you can check with the municipal attorney's office and then give guidance on that.
Okay. Let's do that. And keep moving forward, Bob, on your letter.
Sure will. I'll have it by the end of the week.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So under new business, Port Power Resiliency Initiative, you're back up.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Did that work? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I will keep this quick because of the time that we're on. I'll remind you that Port of Alaska is a public document that serves both public and private interests, and we need to keep that in mind as we're moving forward with this discussion. So, all right, I'm not advancing. All right, there we go. So the Port Power Plan is the plan that's been emerging that we really have 4 goals for. And the order of the priority of these goals is going to depend upon who you are and what your interests are. But basically, we're trying to put together a port plan that will improve operational resiliency and reliability, will reduce power costs, will improve our power system flexibility, and that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's our general goal for the power plan. And I include resiliency, reliability, security, business continuity, all those sorts of things in one bullet because they're really a continuum. And where does reliability become resiliency and the ability to keep operating? And that's going to vary a little bit from each port user, but they're all part of the same continuum. I know most of you know this, but I can't overemphasize the things that we're talking about with the Port Power Resiliency Program. Port of Alaska is the state's primary inbound cargo handling facility. We handle half of all the freight that comes into the state.
Jim, could you hold a second? If everyone else could mute their phones I think we can hear you better because if everyone else would please mute because you're really getting a lot of feedback right now. So A's, looks like you're not muted. And who's ever 907-378 is not muted. If you could please mute, that would help.
Okay. So as I was saying, I can't overemphasize the importance of resiliency at the port for the state of Alaska, just because half of everything that comes into the state crosses our dock. Half of what crosses our dock ends up being distributed to some destination outside of Anchorage. We handle 80% of the vans and containers that come into South Central ports, and it's about 75% of all the non-petroleum freight that comes into the state of Alaska. If you look at it, our port really has three core functions. I'll call it commerce, national defense, and earthquake resiliency, disaster response. The commerce model is, pretty straightforward. It's the business of bringing fuel and freight into the economy. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that it's important. You all know that. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of the fuel used at Ted Stevens International Airport. We are all of the fuel used at J-Bear. We serve about 90% of Alaskans regularly use goods that crossed our dock. And we generate something like $14 billion in direct economic activity. So port resiliency is really important. We are also a commercial strategic seaport and critical to the DoD missions across Alaska, the Pacific Rim, and the Arctic. About 20% of the materials used in this port are DoD related or that cross our dock. And for disaster response, Alaska's cargo distribution is a basic hub and spoke system. If our port, the hub, fails, all of a sudden you can't get supplies to all of the rest of the state. And that's a real problem, especially when you consider that the rest of the state only has 6 to 10 days worth of food in the state. So if we stop functioning, it's critical for the whole state. So our challenge is, how do we maintain our resiliency? At most ports, redundancy is the easy answer. If Port of Tacoma fails, it's a bad day. But they have 7 other ports on the Washington seaboard that can substitute for Port of Tacoma. They have all the ports down on the Columbia River. They have the ports in British Columbia, Vancouver. So they have lots of redundancy. Here in Alaska, we do not have that redundancy, and we can't economically afford to have redundant port facilities. Our population is just too small. Went too far. Come on. There we go. What just happened? So our key operational risks are aging docks and our power systems. The aging docks, Port of Alaska Modernization Program is dealing with those. The power systems, we are very much an electric port. The cranes, for instance, all of the cargo yards, the fuel pumps, the cement pumps, we use a lot of electricity on this port. And we have a relatively fragile system that's attached to a relatively fragile grid. And just to make that point, we had a power failure just a week and a half ago on May 16th. So on Sunday the 16th at about 8 o'clock in the evening, power went out. We had a transformer go. When it went out, we had one Anchorage, or rather the Matson Anchorage was still offloading containers. The tanker Lone Star was offloading fuel. We had the bulk cement carrier Mount Rainier finishing up its operations, and fortunately Tote had just left. So all of those operations depend on electricity, or not all of them, but specifically the container operations really rely on electricity. It took us 4 hours to get the docks back online, and it took us the better part of 8 hours to bring the fuel companies, Crowley, Marathon, and also ABI back online. We were able to make the crane safe when the power went out. We used our small generator to do that, but the problem was we couldn't continue the offload. So we were basically sitting there without any ability to operate, and it really highlighted the need to have a more resilient power system here. And that's what the Port Power Plan is really looking to do. What? Come on. There we go. So basically what we want to do is we want to turn the port into what's called a connected microgrid. So most of the time we will work off of power that will be provided by Chugach Electric. However, in the event of an outage, we'll be able to separate ourselves from the grid and generate our own power and keep operations going. We want to have emergency backup power generation as part of that. We want to have some energy storage as part of that. We want to have some renewable power generation, and we want to have a system of metering and controls that will let us manage our operations so that we can reduce the overall power and flatten the power spikes that we have to reduce our power costs. As we move forward with this plan, we really have three different challenges. The first set that are probably the easiest are the technical challenges. The technical challenges are benefiting from a variety of new technologies, but the sorts of things we need to think about are, as we're building the microgrid, how much of an outage can users tolerate between the time that the power goes out and when the microgrid brings the power back on? Depending on how much you spend on the microgrid, you can make it so that it's completely seamless. Nobody will ever know the power went out. Or you could have power outages that last for anywhere from a couple of seconds to minutes. We're going to have regulatory challenges, which frankly are being simplified quite a bit because Chugach Electric is very interested in participating in our program. The sorts of considerations that are going to go into the regulatory challenges will include who owns the equipment that we're building, who owns the power that we're generating with our local generation, both our backup power and our renewable, think solar, who's operating these systems, and what sorts of smart grid operations can we include? What kinds of special metering, for instance, can we build into the system to help manage the system? And those are all going to be regulatory challenges. We're going to be the first significant microgrid on the rail belt grid, so I can't tell you if this is going to be easy or hard. Finally, we're going to have some financial challenges, and that's basically who pays for this. The good news is this modernization program, this microgrid, is going to generate a number of value streams. It will be things like by leveling the load that the port creates, we can reduce our overall power costs. So in round numbers, the port, its average load is something like 2.5 megawatts, but it actually fluctuates between about 1.5 and sometimes spikes as high as 7 megawatts. And part of the reason that our power costs on the port are so expensive is because the utility, Chugach, has to have enough power running in order to accommodate those up to 7 megawatt load spikes that we have. So whatever we can do to level our load, get it down closer to just a nice flat, steady 2.5 megawatts of load, that's going to reduce our power costs. It's also going to reduce Chugach's operating costs. It's going to simplify grid management. It's going to produce a bunch of benefits. So what we need to do is figure out exactly what the benefits are, how do we harvest them, and then how do we allocate them to pay for the project construction. And we are working on that right now. When we look at the microgrid, this is more or less what will be the microgrid. You can see our main docks will be in it. There's a little bit of area beyond the port that's included. So for instance, potentially the 2 barge terminals that are south of the port would be included. We are looking at having a small solar project that would charge batteries. The batteries would be the energy storage, and those will be really important for maintaining, or rather leveling, our load, because if we can service power spikes you know, when cranes are lifting containers or when a fuel pump first kicks in. If we can handle those with the battery instead of having to go out to Chugach, that will level the load and reduce the demand charges that the users are being charged. Our original plan was we were thinking about having backup power generation using Alaska Railroad engines. As soon as Chugach started getting involved, it turns out they inherited a 17 megawatt gas or diesel generation facility that's up here on the upper right-hand corner of the drawing, that's less than a mile from our port, that has 2 wires now that connect to the port. And they are interested in making that our backup generator, so that in the event of a grid failure, we would unplug from the grid and we could have up to 17 megawatts of power generation from that facility. It's a pretty exciting opportunity. So what we're doing now is we've finished the initial feasibility study for the program. We are in the process, probably later this month or early in June, we will be installing some special meters that we're getting from the Department of Energy that will help us better define our loads and our load spikes. And that will help us design the system to optimize for leveling our loads and our needs. We're also in the process of talking with the port users so that we can understand their needs in terms of backup power, how much of an outage they can tolerate, that sort of thing. And we are developing a plan of finance. I'm hoping to have an initial plan of finance and an initial project schedule probably in early July. And then we will use that material to do the initial project designs that we can use to start chasing grant money later on in the summer. And, you know, I guess the good news in terms of the grant is that our port power plan really aligns very well with some of the goals, both infrastructure, national, or the response to climate change, and the racial justice goals that the Biden administration has put down, so that we think that our program aligns very well with some of the federal funding that we see coming down the pike. We've been working very closely with JBER and the Department of Energy. When JBER first saw our plan, they liked it so much, they said, hey, the southwest corner of our base does not have adequate backup power. Can we connect to your backup system or your microgrid to provide backup power for JBER? So that got the Department of Energy involved in the program. The Department of Energy paid for our initial feasibility study. They are now paying for a good piece of our special metering study that we're doing. And we are expecting that they will help us get funding for the public benefits that are going to be generated. The public benefits will be basically the resiliency that we're adding to the port, as opposed to the business benefits of reducing power costs. And so we're working with these organizations right now and feeling very confident about our opportunity to get some federal grants to combine with private monies in order to pay for the project. And that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Jim, what would selling power back to the grid, is that a possibility for
Yes.
cost?
Yes, the short answer is it's going to be some sort of a public-private partnership. And as I said, we're hoping to have some renewable generation capacity that would come from the solar. And not only likely to, our working model right now would have Chugach actually operating our grid. So, you know, we're not electrical operators. We don't know anything about that. But what we could do is we could Chugach in, let them operate it. They could put they've already basically agreed in principle to buy any excess power that we generate with a solar program. They're also very interested in using our batteries, so that perhaps we built an oversized battery, and one of the benefits that would be created would be that Chugach could use the battery capacity for grid services like voltage and frequency regulation. So that would let them, that would cut their grid costs, operating costs considerably and help pay for the project.
I got you. Thank you. I think I walked on somebody there. Was somebody else making comment? No. Okay. Any other questions for Jim on the resiliency and power generation? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to commission actions for introduction and consideration. Anything we have coming moving forward or votes for next meeting? Steve, anything you're aware of?
Hi.
Hey, Brad, go ahead. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, we're on to item number 9, commission actions for introduction and consideration. I don't think we have any, just making sure.
No, none that I can think of.
The only thing would be our letter of support.
And that, that's appreciated. However we can help, we're happy to.
Okay, yeah, I think 2 things. I think we just need a little direction on how we can do it and move it forward in our time frame from legal. Also, Ron's conversation about an executive meeting and what the legal requirements are there for us to do that. If we're going to legal anyway, would be good to have the bylaw, so to speak, in regards to how we can go into executive session and what the rules are.
Yeah, we will reach out to the legal office and get you some guidance on that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, public comments. Oh, sorry, Simon, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just to follow on that executive session. I don't know whether we actually need one, and I kind of agree with Ron. Is that all we're doing is writing a letter of support, which we had discussed and was discussed at this meeting. But it would be interesting to know what the legal opinion is with regards to executive session.
Yeah, I think it would be great to know what that is. And so if this comes up in the future, we could have some direction.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Eugene.
Okay, I'm having trouble with the phone connecting. Every time I press a button, it's not working right. But can you hear me okay, Well?
Yep.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'll set my timer. My name is Eugene Carl-Haberman. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in the public interest. Now, in reference to the letter that you want to write up, as a commission, respectively, you need to prove that in a meeting, and the public needs a chance to review that document. It's one thing for staff or so forth to send a memo out to X, Y, or Z party. It's another thing where the commission itself is approving a communication out. They're literally voting an approval of a letter. For example, the election commission and a report, or they went to the assembly on the election, that had to have public comment, and that had to be approved. And I was at the meeting last Friday at the election commissions where they needed public comment before they sent it on to the assembly. So this is an example of what you're going. And I'm cautioning you sending and communicating with it. I don't question your right to communicate with the attorneys, but there's a problem there because you have, as a commission, provide, I believe, an exemplary role in how you conducted yourself on process, whereas at the assembly and administration, they've ignored that and doing proper public process. Okay. Now, one thing I would like to say in closing, I've been attending meetings, as you know, over the years, and I've witnessed a great deal of cooperation and not in a policy of difference that I would see elsewhere in the municipality. And I appreciate that in staff and the way you conduct your meetings. Second is you are significantly way ahead of what I see out in the Matsu Borough. And in most recently, on 3 occasions, you may not be aware of, that I've called for at the Matsu Borough that they needed to, because of mismanagement over the years that I witnessed, they need to cease and desist the scenario And I called them to stop even funding for that port and provide and put your support to the Port of Alaska in Anchorage and skip that port that's going out in the valley. And I raised that also during the public hearings on the annual budget recently too, that the direction and funding should go to you and support and not dealing with the port out there in the valley. And again, I appreciate everything you're doing and your efforts to try to be transparent. And I hope you continue that path. And I hope others will recognize that there's a significant difference between what's going out in the valley and what you're doing. And what you're doing is vital for the state of Alaska. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Eugene. I appreciate that. And thanks for the support. Yeah, we'll take whatever Fort Mac is trying to put together for no activity, but thank you for that. Any other public comments? Seeing none. Port Director closing comments. You're back, Steve. I don't know if you have anything additional to add, or Sharon, you had. I think we're pretty good on the meeting. I think you pretty much covered that, Sharon. On
right. I just wanted to mention while you guys have been talking about executive session, I wanted to let you know that there's a reference you can use. You go to the mini website for Anchorage Municipal Code, and you go to the Code of Regulations, not the municipal code, but the Code of Regulations, which is at the bottom of the list. And you're looking for Title IV, Boards and Commissions. And I'm specifically looking right now at 4.70202. And it gives guidance on executive session and when it may or may not be used. So if you want to do independent research, you can. It's all there in the Municipal Code of Regulations, Title IV.
Okay, thank you.
And I've got nothing more to add except I will let you know when we were given approval from purchasing office to give notice to proceed to the contract that's going to do the rate study piece that you're owed. We're owing you some guidance on. They may not be done by the time your next commission meeting is, but we will have them do a progress report so you can see how close they are to getting you what you need to make a decision and recommendation for the assembly.
Okay.
And I would ask you to call on Garrett next week.
Go ahead, Garrett.
I'm going to have to bail out, but I just want to thank Steve and the RFP committee for getting that job done timely. And that I think the selected party will do a good job for us as we move forward. So Steve, thanks. And fellow commissioners, I need to escape to another meeting, so thank you.
Okay, we'll let you know what our next meeting schedule is, Garrett.
All right.
Thank you. Commissioner comments. I guess Garrett put his in. Let's see. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Simon.
I would just like to thank the presentation on that Port Power Resiliency Plan. I think that's really, really exciting, and to me, that is pretty important. And it's one of those things you never really think about. And I just think it was a really well done, and I hope that's successful. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I wanted to give a shout out to Alamar and let the commission know some of the great work they're doing with regard to COVID vaccines. And I don't know if everyone is aware, but they've taken the lead and they're allowing and facilitating nurses to come to the vessels and provide the Johnson & Johnson vaccine to some of the mariners. And in some cases, guys, these are foreign crews that would have no opportunity to get this. And I think it was really great work. And I wanted to highlight that and point that out to the commissioners of Brittany and Alamar's work to make that happen, because I really think it was a big deal and great for the port, great for the maritime community, and just good leadership.
Yeah, that's great. They go into a lot of foreign ports, so it's good to see. We don't want it either, so it's a win-win. Any other commissioners?
This is Ron. I would just like to also thank Sharon and Steve and Jim, everybody from the port for the valuable information they shared with us today and all their work. And on that note, I'd like to once again push for whatever it takes to get the letter going before June 8th, which, you know, we don't have to have it in when everything else goes in, but it would certainly be in our best interest to get it in when the users group puts theirs in and get it before the assembly as soon as possible. So I'm available for any sort of meeting we need to have to review the letter and put it out for public comment as soon as possible. Over.
Roger that. I appreciate that. I am as well, and we'll get that. Have it written up by the end of the week for our review, and then we can decide if we have any changes or move it forward from there, and do whatever we need to do to get it done. Simon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just the same. I'm in the same place as Ron. I'd like to see a letter written, and I'm also happy to be on any other sort of public meetings or whatever to make sure that we can get this out, because I think it would be a really a lost opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, it's Aves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad. I'm in agreement with Ron and Simon, and thank you, Bob, for volunteering to draft the letter. I'm eager to see that go forward. I think we need to show our concern about continuity and trying to get this project up, onward and upward. So thanks for everybody, and congratulations on a good meeting. Jim, that was an excellent power resiliency program presentation. So thanks.
Very good. Anyone else?
Yeah, yeah, this is Bob.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, first, I'll try to get that letter out as soon as possible, and or at least get some bullet points out so they can get consensus on it. More importantly, there's a change of administration on July 1, and I really hope that we can communicate as individuals to members of the transition team or the mayor's new select of the importance of the continuity and the team that is in place in the port at this point in time. I think they've done a long trudge over a long period of time to bring an even keel to this project and have a stable direction forward. But I think for the new administration coming in, how they understand that, how they see it, at least needs to be recognized from our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I agree with all that. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I guess I would like to pass on our best to Paul. You make sure he has the best from the Port Commission, and encourage everyone to reach out to him and wish him well. And we all wish Roy well in his new endeavors in Florida. I guess I'm a little bit jealous of the sunshine, but we are coming into summer, so don't remind me in January. With that, thank you, everybody, and thanks for a good meeting. Let's look at moving forward on the next meeting schedule. I think there's conversations about having a hybrid meeting where those that are unwilling to attend for COVID concerns or wanting to attend via electronically due to nature of where they're at. I would make a recommendation for a hybrid. Those that want to meet could meet at the port again. Any comments or responses to that? No? Okay. So with that, we need to look at dates. Where would we be? If there wasn't anything particular we could hit in the next window moving into July. Not hearing Steve.
I would suggest earlier in July for my schedule if possible.
Let's see.
Well, 28 keeps you on schedule, and 28 would, I know what Ron said, but I know the 28th is closer to the end of what the contract timeline would be for this study contractor. So they may have more to say than wait, but a week earlier than that, we support any of those days, any of those ones.
Ron, would you be able to do it electronically later in the month?
I guess I'll have to. The 28th is a rough one. I'm turning 40, so.
Oh my goodness.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Did he say?
He's turning 40.
Again? He's turning 40 again.
Well, I can't imagine anything better than spending it with us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I would be up for either the 21st or the 28th myself. I'll be out 7th and 14th.
I suggest the 28th, Mrs. Aves.
Anyone else?
I'm open either date. Simon Leshetsky.
Well, I guess how does the 28th works for me? I don't want to up Ron's birthday, but I guess we could give him the present. He could have the day off.
I'll make it work. I'll probably call in from the middle of the lake.
Okay. Let's see you water skiing now.
Yeah, we'll sing happy birthday to you. How about that?
Perfect. Yeah. I definitely won't call in then.
Okay, well let's go for July 28th and regular time, and we'll have a hybrid for those. I'm assuming we'll get some direction from the staff on whether we can meet by then, hopefully in person for those that want to attend, and then we'll make it available electronically if that's possible, Jim.
I will publish, yes, we can absolutely make it available electronically, and I will publish the date.
And we have a nice big conference table. You all chose to be here.
Okay. Will we have lunch?
Yes. Like in olden times. Like in olden times.
Oh boy. Okay. With that, we shall adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Stay safe.